Okay, welcome to Principles of Micro with James Bland. This class here is going to be about externalities. Okay, so this is extending some of the material that we learned in Chapter 7 of Mankew's Principles of Micro, which is where we started to develop our idea of consumer and producer surplus. So just as a reminder, with consumer and producer surplus, what we had initially was a buyer and a seller. Okay, and a buyer sent money to the seller, and the seller sent a good to the buyer, and then the seller gets a benefit of the price they sold it minus the cost, and then the buyer gets a benefit of their marginal value of that item minus the price. So here what we have is that the gains from trade would be, sorry, there should be a marginal cost here, would be the buyer's marginal value minus the seller's marginal cost. Okay. Now, what we did from here is that we'd say, well, this is the total value that's generated from that trade, because we assumed that all of the value of consuming the good went to the buyer, right? And all the cost incurred in producing the good went to the seller. Okay, but in this chapter, we're going to consider situations where there is a third party over here who might benefit or receive a cost based on this trade, right? So there might be an external benefit or cost, which is what we call an externality, that is imposed on this third party. Okay. Now this could be a benefit. For example, if I get a flu shot, right, then I am less likely to get the flu. Okay, that's a private benefit to me. I consumed that flu shot. But also, if I'm interacting with you, it's now less likely that, well, since it's less likely that I get the flu, now you're less likely to get the flu because I'm less likely to have it, right? I'm less likely to pass it on to you, right? You neither sold me that flu shot or got that flu shot. That was my flu shot, but you're benefiting from it. So in that situation, the private value, right, that's my marginal value, is going to be less than the social value, right? So private value here is how much benefit I get from consuming the good, but social value here is how much benefit does society get from me consuming that good. And if it's a flu shot, well, I'm less likely to get the flu. That's my private value, but someone else is getting this benefit. So we've got private value is equal to, we've got social value is equal to private value plus external benefit. Okay, so social value is going to be greater than just the private value. If we think about this, this means that the demand curve no longer measures social value, right? It is still measuring value to consumers, participating in the market, but it's not counting all the values that are generated from that trade. Okay. On the other hand, we might have a situation where a trade imposes a cost on someone else. Okay, so the classic example of this is pollution. Okay, for example, when I drive my car around, which isn't happening as much at the moment, but when I drive my car around, I am making the air less clean, right? So that's imposing a cost on myself, which, as a supposedly rational economic decision maker, I can fully incorporate into my decision about how much to drive. But what's also happening is that you are breathing less clean air because of my driving as well. Okay, and so in this case, the person who sold me that gas is not incurring the full cost of the production of that gas, because someone who neither bought nor sold that good is receiving a cost. So you can think about examples of this being passive smoking, pollution either in a lake or into the air, or sort of more relevant at the moment, people going outside and going to parties and things like that, because that's imposing a cost on other people in that we're not socially distancing to the appropriate level. Okay, so what this is telling us is that demand is not measuring. If one of these things is true, demand is not measuring values properly, and supply is not measuring costs properly. So in the next few videos, I'm going to show you examples of markets where we either have a positive externality, right, in which case demand is not measuring values properly because there's an external value, or a negative externality where supply isn't measuring costs properly because there's a cost that sellers aren't incorporating into their decision making. Okay,